turn it down.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Test test.
I can hear myself now too. Can you hear me?
All right, welcome everyone. There we go. Welcome to this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Shippensburg Area School District School Board. We have 3 items on our agenda tonight. First is a presentation from G.R. Spongel regarding some high school generator options. So I believe that 2 of you are, all right, go ahead, Chad, take it away.
Is this on? Yep. Okay, so with me is Chad Klein. He is the guy, he gave us our quotes for the 2 different generators. He gave us a 200 kW generator quote and a 500 kW quote. I know there's some questions about how big of a generator we actually needed. So we're giving you guys 2 options to talk about. I know this is actually on the action part of it for tonight, so we just wanted to make sure you guys got the information you were looking for, and to throw any questions at us, whether myself or Chad Klein can answer for you. So.
Sorry, by the way, everyone, this is agenda item 5E. If you want to look at, there's a few details regarding dollars there that you might want to look at while we're looking.
Yeah, there's a significant cost and price. I know when we originally started this, the original intent was to kind of create a shelter in place area that could be used in the entire town. But you know, after thinking and more worried about our budget, is that the route we really want to go to? So I'll let Chad talk about the differences of what we're putting on, what would we put on the big generator, and what we would use the smaller generator for.
So the original quote was a 500 kW generator. What you would have is the versatility there of picking up most of the school. You have a chiller system service as far as a breaker. That would take a large portion of that. That is currently on a drive, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
So
VFD.
that gives you the versatility of using the generator with a drive. Otherwise, the inrush would be too much for that generator. The 400 amp that we're giving for basically the pump and any of the 480 is also on the 200 kW. So the 200 kW that we're giving you as an option would be the smaller size, but it's giving you the minimum load that I would want to see for a school to be functional. Gives you water, gives you cooling, your IT support, and your emergency egress. It gives you also functions that you would have for a kitchen to keep freezers up, limited on what it would allow for, say, an oven or anything like that, unless it's gas powered. So we have in the price log sessions to basically size what you can put on that generator to keep it adequate that it won't overflow, the limited on that generator. So we would include the logger sessions, then at that point, pick up what we could. If the 500 is, that would give you more versatility, okay, to pick up the larger loads. We could incorporate that with a drive on the chiller. You can then pick up a lot of your cooling in the building. And also, at that point, we could limit oven use depending on what's used there. Also, we would do longer sessions on figuring that out. So kind of want to point out the 2 differences. One is for most of your school. The other is just going to be your basic emergency egress and then a couple other functions to keep the school functioning if you would have an outage. Any questions on that?
I just want to know, which one, both of them will do the refrigerator, but will the smaller one still keep our food cold?
It would.
Okay, that's all.
So what we would do, we're going to limit that just to the freezers and refrigerators. We won't pick up the whole kitchen.
Okay.
So we're going to, again, we'll do the longer session, but the minimum that will be done is the freezers and refrigerators.
So
I guess the question I have is, like, what is the expectation of this generator? Is it to keep school going at the high school, being as we did not approve the flexible instruction day? Like, what is the expectation? Like, if it was in winter, will it keep the heat and the air conditioning going? Like, what?
I would defer. The smaller one's not going to keep the heat in
The heat, yes, we'll keep the
heat on.
we'll keep the heat on.
Okay.
So basically, we're just going to power up. There's a heat panel in there that's already there. We're going to power that up from the 400 amp breaker. So that would already be powered. So you have, that's an oil burner? Yeah, so that's just the pumps, keeping that operational. Yes, you would have heat
Both of them diesel or one diesel, one gas?
with diesel.
And how long, it would just help us finish out a day, or if there were longer term needs?
So that all depends on load, but or the tank that's on it, it would be full load for 24 hours. Any other questions?
Thanks. I mean, I think that helps with the technical bits. I mean, the real question, I guess, is just for us administratively, like what the goals are that we're trying to meet with the device, right? And that's not a question for you. So, but thanks for helping out with the.
The current system,
Technical
though,
stuff.
what I will tell you is, if it fails, if you have a part fail, there's nothing to replace. We're going to be dead in the water because there's nothing out there right now because of the age of the unit to replace stuff. So that's the key. You're going to have to do something one way or the other, and that's your transfer switches and the generator. So something has to be done.
So with the smaller generator, we would be able to keep the kids warm and get them home, but would likely not be able to we wouldn't have technology, we wouldn't have, you know.
We're going to keep so you would have the ability to keep the IT up. Do the kids have laptops?
Yes.
So you would have that capability. I mean, because the laptops, of course, themselves have battery power as long as they would last. You would have the capability of having lights on, okay, your emergency lighting. You would have the capability of keeping the school warm. I would think we could probably function. I mean, the kitchen-wise, limited what you could do with it, but you would have food that you could serve cold. I mean, basically, you would have that option. And then depending on gas, whatever,
Right.
you would have the option, all your units that run on gas would be operational.
No air conditioner, right?
No AC.
And you said emergency lighting, so that would be a different type of lighting, like in the classrooms and hallways, than what is normally there?
So yes, your emergency lighting is only going to be like minimal. Can you function during the day? Yes, you could function as a classroom. You have enough windows that you could still hold class, and still when you get to the hallways, be able to see to get to a different class. That's what you'd be functioning on to get class to class.
That's with the
Smaller ones.
smaller one. With the larger one, we'd have pretty much everything.
You would be able to pick up your lighting, yeah.
And so we,
That option, okay, didn't include, that gives you the versatility of going there. Okay, there's going to be added cost to pick all that other load up. I'm giving you a bare minimum on that 500 kW. You would then, there's an extra pipe run in, all that would be there, and then we'd be putting another transfer switch in to pick all the rest of the load up. So that would be just a start of full school.
Could you just summarize really quick what you're, because I thought I had it, and then what you just said made me think I don't have it. I'm just wondering what I am getting with the big unit versus the small unit. Just
So what you're doing with the big unit is you have the capability of the 500 kW to carry to school, okay? But what I'm carrying with that is what we'd be adding would be the 400. What we don't have on there is the chiller and then the lighting load. So that would be another transfer switch we would add to the cost to pick up the chiller. But the generator and all the piping would already be in. So that'd be just another budget thing later to pick up the rest of the school.
And that is just the senior high school.
That is just a senior high school.
How does the generator, like if we were to choose the smaller version versus the larger version, like what impact would that have on our school safety when it comes to cameras, doors, radios, all of that?
So your doors and all that come out of your IT?
Yeah, they'd still be okay.
Okay.
They'd
So-
be picked up on their servers. And
The 200 kW should be all coming out of your IT. So all that should be picked up in that room. So what we're doing is picking up the IT panel out of the that, mechanical room.
Yep.
So that 200 kW through a transfer will pick up the IT room
So cameras, door locks, all of that.
if it's out of that panel.
And it is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I think there's two panels that we have out of, one in the mechanical room and one in this hallway here is the other one we were
Correct.
talking about picking up. And then the only other difference, I think with the 400 or the 500 kW, we powered up all the kitchen receptacles too.
So we're going to pick up the panels.
So we pick up, that was with the bigger one.
Correct.
So with the smaller one though, we're not picking up all the, well,
We're
we're
going to
gonna
do
have
longer,
most of them.
We're going to do longer session and verify what we can pick up.
Right, right. So I know the intention was that we'd still be able to use the entire kitchen with the 500 kW. And then, yeah, if we wanted to add on the chiller later, we could do that. So with this smaller one, we're not picking up all the kitchen, but we're picking up we don't think we're picking up all the kitchen, but you say we might have the possibility to do so.
And that's where the longer sessions will take place.
Yeah.
If power goes down,
And,
I'm sorry. If the power goes down and we got the bigger generator, could school continue or not?
Yes, school can continue.
So they could have class so that superintendent wouldn't have to send them home.
It goes back to what Dr. Goetz says is, are you going to send kids home or do you want to keep them in? You know what I mean? That's like,
That's
what
what
do
I'm-
you
that's-
see happening?
That's what I'm trying to figure
What
out.
do you guys think would happen?
The smaller generators, we're going to hope that the power comes on and we're restored. You know, the biggest advantage is that we're not going to lose the food.
Right, that's the biggest
which
advantage.
that guarantees, and we're hopefully not going to mess up a lot of tech, you know, and have tech issues based on, you know, being out of power or, you know, surges or whatever else might happen. But my understanding is that functioning as a normal school in the smaller generator probably would be a stretch.
Yes.
Okay.
I
The
mean-
bigger generator, we could for an extended period of time, you know, much easier to get by with that version versus the smaller one, which is
Right.
just truly life support for the most part until the buses can get there.
Yeah, that and it protects our house pump and keeps our house pump running for our heaters and you know, you're protecting, keeps the pipes from freezing and things like that. That's the biggest thing with having the heat on. With the smaller one, because we're kind of thinking we're sending the kids home if we had that smaller one. And we know it's going to be out for an extended period of time. It's out for 20 minutes, we're probably okay.
So in those scenarios, you know, like if we lose power, we would have to identify why and get an estimate of how long it might be down, you know, because summoning the bus back takes some time in and of itself. And if the power comes back on, then we're good. There's just a lot of unknowns in that scenario. I've been in schools that have lost power and not had a generator at all, and that's extremely rough. But being able to preserve communications technology and the cost of the food in the freezers is the big ticket items for us here.
So one thing I really just thought about also is the other schools have 200 kW generators. So if there were be a major outage, you're going to be sending those other kids home from school anyhow. So kind of in my opinion, it just makes me wonder, is it worth going to the 500 kW? Because, you know, this would be the only school that would have the capability of staying open during something of significance.
Well, that's kind of my question as far when we've had power outages, they have been resolved within the 24 hours. But listening to you seem to be kind of leading towards the 500 versus to what Mr. Creets is.
I mean,
leaning towards.
to my mind, you know, we got to take care of those priorities, and it's a disrupted day anyway. You know, and it's hard to know what will happen and predict. So at some point, I would have to make a call, right, wrong, or indifferent, that we're either staying or we're going. The smaller generator allows us to keep the essential pieces together. The larger one for another $100,000 would make it almost seamless for us to stay in. If we're losing power, at least in my short time here, it's going to be at the high school. Just I think from the configuration and the last time we lost there, my talks with the electric company because of the lines and the age of the lines. So that is my opinion, most vulnerable building. But you never know when a line gets knocked down in a car accident or.
So are both of these for about like the 24-hour proximity as far as like refrigerator? Because we do rely on technology for Chromebooks, smart boards, et cetera. Like, what is the capacity for both? Like, one might be 24 hours versus.
Again, that all depends on load, but you could go 72 hour. There's an 850 gallon tank under the 500, so that would, depending on the load calculation, that would be multiple days. Again, I just want. That is only going to get you the capability. Then there's going to be another added cost to pick up the chiller and all that. I'm just letting you know that what we're giving you with the 500 is another 100,000, but it gives you the capability of picking up the chiller and all that. There is going to be other costs, another transfer switch. So I'm just throwing that out there.
While you're throwing it out, what's the cost? You saying extra? What do you think that's going to cost us?
Ballpark figure, I would say 50.
$50,000 more.
50 more to pick up the chiller and any other, you want to pick up the panels and the lighting.
And that
Ballpark figure. That's a
I understand the ballpark, but so that would take care of our school.
Would take care of your school, correct.
One school. Like,
One school, high school.
just the school.
Just a high
It's
school.
this building.
That goes back to the, if you wanted to be a egress for the community, this would provide that, but that also entails a lot more paperwork. Just throwing that out there.
Once we start switching over to LED lighting and things like that, how much savings would that be in electrical load for the smaller generator? Would it be able to handle the majority of the lights then?
No, the LED would save you power, but it's not going to be sufficient enough for the generator sizing.
Okay.
So just to try to nutshell this, it seems like the smaller generator just lets us limp through the day long enough to get students home. The bigger generator lets us potentially preserve the day and not lose it so that we're a little more seamless it becomes less of a disruption.
Correct.
Yeah, and I mean, the question is, you're talking about a black swan event here that could happen, could not happen. How far do we want to go down to preserve an event that may or may not happen?
Superintendent, since you said you experienced this, what's your recommendation? I'd like to know. I'm not speaking. What do you think?
So, to my mind, that anytime we can save some money, like currently we have nothing. The last time we had a power outage, it got up and fixed within a few hours. Our main concern was the chiller, or not the chiller, the freezer that forced us into a panic. I believe that the smaller generator would serve the purpose that we need. It's in line with what the other buildings are. It's tough for me to say, let's spend another $100,000 to do and save one school day.
It would be 150 to
Right.
add the additional equipment.
So, but I also wonder, like, Lord forbid there be a catastrophic something that happens in our community, that the community would be like a first aid rescue where our cafeterias and our gymnasium would be set up for safety precautions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking through the lenses of the superintendent for the school. I mean, if the board feels that has value, and I see value in that,
To be kind of proactive.
again, a black swan event You know, it would have to be a pretty big event if we're the only thing that's up and running for an extended period of time, but the possibility exists. I'm telling you that you know, upon talking with Chad and you know, thinking it through, the smaller generator serves our immediate need, and gets us to not have the major issues that we would have faced if we don't do anything.
But if we have to add on to the high school in years to come, will we need a new generator? If we go with a small one, we'd have to buy a bigger generator?
They'd probably add another
We're
generator.
gonna add a generator.
Yeah, you'd probably add another one.
And if we
Now,
had,
if we had the 500 kW, we wouldn't.
that's,
On the size, but the 500 should cover the added growth.
How big would that extension have to be? If the smaller one's just worried about the freezer and the IT side,
Yeah, I think like from plans that I see us working on now over the last year and a half, I don't think those plans would make a difference in that 200 kW. Because it were still, the main thing is boilers, house pump, and the freezers and walk-ins of the kitchen. And we would have that covered.
okay.
Do we have, in our future, are we thinking about moving to these, to larger generators across the district? Is that like a goal, or?
That's not been on any list that I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're fairly new. The intermediate school's fairly new, I believe. Yeah, they're the other ones are in good condition. Actually, I think the middle school's the second newest one. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see that there's any, again, it's just what you would want to do with this, whether you want to keep kids in school, you would only be able to keep high school kids in school. And, where you want to be place for the community to go to if a catastrophic event hit.
Chad, not to put you on the spot, where are you on this?
I after thinking about it, I mean, honestly, I think the 200 kW would be the best thing to go because it just puts us on line with the school. But if you guys want to do the shelter in place and everything, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it would be awesome for the area to have that and have a place to go. Something happens in the middle of the day, like our entire school district could all get shipped down here if we needed to. That'd be a nice thing to think about. But
Well, the smaller generator doesn't necessarily prevent that. It just means we can't have quite as many services, right? You wouldn't have air conditioning and that sort of thing, but it doesn't mean that the building would be unoccupiable.
right, that's
in an
true.
emergency.
That's true. Right. Well, yeah. We would. The thing is like we wouldn't. We would have cold foods. We would be able to do cold foods. It's like I was talking to Dawn in the kitchen, and I said, well, we could always do propane grills because if we couldn't use our ovens or couldn't use our stoves, so it's not like you couldn't cook food for it, but
I feel like in that sort of an emergency,
you're not even
it's
worried
all
about that.
other kinds of resources that are
Right,
available. It's not.
right.
It's not like the school district has to.
Chad, can you just refresh my memory as to how we got to this whole point, as in how old is our current generator?
Oh, what is it? 52? 1952 Ford engine. Yeah.
Love it.
And yeah, we just got it actually working a little bit better now than what it was a year ago. If you guys were here for last year's event when the teachers came in, we had a strobe. I thought it was a laser show, like I really did, and it wasn't. It's just the power going out and the generator trying to kick on. So yeah, it has to be done. And think about that. This is the only school that has that type. All the other generators at schools they're fine. They're in good shape. This is the one that needs it.
Does it have fins on it?
What's that?
It's a.
All right. I don't think we expected to spend over 20 minutes talking about this. I appreciate you guys coming and explaining all of that. It was terrific. We can debate this further as a board when it comes up on the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Next item on the agenda, we have a achievement update by Sherry Woodall.
All right. So mine probably isn't going to be as enlightening as that. Mine's all numbers and things. But with the end of the school year coming up, we've had a variety of assessments going on at the K-8 levels and then looking at our final grades at the middle school and high school, just to give an idea of where we are currently compared to where we were in 2020, 2021. So I'm calling this the COVID academic recovery just for comparisons as to where we are at. So the first area I'm going to go over is K-5. We do a variety of assessments at the elementary level. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is our Acadience reading. So this is the composite reading scores. Basically, what we're looking at with Acadience is the percentage of students that are on benchmark or on grade level for where they're supposed to be at the end of the year. So when you look at this data table, I have it set up by our various grade levels, K to 5, and then starting with our years of Acadience testing. So we started testing in Acadience in 17-18. So you can see where we were every year. 19-20, we were not able to give the end of year assessment because we weren't here. March 13th, we all went home for 2 weeks and didn't come back for a while. And then looking at where we were from 2021 up through today. So you can see if you're looking at the kindergarten level and you're looking at the various years, we took a huge dip in 2021, but we are starting to make those gains back. We're not quite where we were in 17-18, but we're starting to recover to that. First grade, we are still having a little while of recovery here. Now, I think we're going to do better next year in first grade than what we were this year in first grade. I will say that we're going through letters training with our teachers in first grade, and then next year kindergarten is going to start it. Letters is all about structured literacy and the science of reading, so it's going to work with our teachers on how to explicitly teach phonemic awareness and phonics, which are key foundational skills, especially at that K1 level. And then our second and third, fourth and fifth grade teachers are going to go through letters training later on, and they're going to be more focused on the comprehension aspect of reading. This year I had first grade out of their classrooms quite a bit for this letters training. It's necessary for them to be out to get that training. So this is probably partially because they were out of the classrooms, but I'm going to expect for this year or for next year this number to go up quite a bit because now they have that foundational knowledge that they can impart onto their students with that science of reading. Second grade, again, you can see we took a pretty big dip down, but we're starting to get close to where we were in 17-18. Third grade, we're actually above where we were in 17-18. Same thing with fourth grade and fifth grade. So, looking at the Acadience, we're getting there. I don't think we're completely there yet, but we are getting close to where we were in 17-18. Now looking at iReady, which is a different type of assessment. So iReady is a diagnostic assessment, so teachers can use that to diagnose specifically where students need some extra improvement on areas. So you can see, I don't go the whole way back in iReady. Unfortunately, my reports only go back 4 years, and since it's 4 years ago, the end of year data, we didn't do iReady assessment because we were out for COVID. I only can go back to the 2021 school year. So you can see at the end of the year for 2021, it's very interesting to look at the benchmarks for kindergarten because, 2021, well, that was our hybrid learning year and 80% of the students were on benchmark. But also when you think about kindergarten and their standards at kindergarten, a lot of the standards at kindergarten are repetitive throughout the year. So they really nail home those standards. So they only have a few standards that they really have to hit hard throughout the year. Now, when you get into first grade, we definitely took a hit during that hybrid learning year, and we're starting to grow back. I will say that prior to COVID, our iReady ELA scores typically were around high 60s, so high 60% proficiency. So we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there in first grade and second grade and third grade. But what you can see in general is growth from K to 3. Fourth and fifth grade is very interesting because you can see there's a slight decline in fourth grade, and fifth grade is holding steady. I mean, they had that one growth this year, but there is a slight decline there, which is interesting to me because when you look at their PSSA scores, which I'll get to in a second, they typically are doing better every year consistently. So that's a little snafu that I'm interested in digging in more to. So looking at our PSSA scores, again, we just took the PSSAs for 2023. We won't have those scores back until August, September, sometimes October. So this is just to remind you guys where we were for the PSSAs that were taken last spring. So the PSSA and ELA in 2019, 62% of our students were proficient in third grade. Last spring, 50.8. In fourth grade, 68.6, last year 56.6, and then in fifth grade, 65.2, and then last year 59.5. So again, you can see that we're getting towards those numbers that we were pre-COVID, but we are not there yet in ELA at the elementary school. Math is a little bit of a different story. So Acadience Math, we did not start the Acadience Math benchmarking until the 2021 school year. And we started it off as a pilot at the K-3 buildings, and we liked the data that it gave us. So that's why in 21, 22, we picked it up at fourth and fifth grade as well. So that's why you'll see there's no data here for 2020, 2021 for fourth and fifth grade. But what you can see is coming in during that hybrid year of learning for K to 5 or K to 3, the end of year benchmarks, 49% of students in kindergarten were on benchmark for Acadians for math in 2021. We're now up to 68% in 2023 or 22-23. First grade, we have some growth going on there, but not a ton. Again, I think that's partially because I did have the teachers out a bit this year. I think that will improve next year. Second grade, we have quite a bit of growth going from 2020, 2021 to 22, 23. Same thing with third grade, we're showing great growth. In fourth and fifth grade, again, because we didn't have that benchmark data for 2021, you can still see there's growth going through, but we don't know what it was at that hybrid learning year. For iReady, typically pre-COVID in mathematics, we were hanging out around the mid-50s for the for achievement. So you can see that first hybrid year in kindergarten, we were around where we were prior to COVID. This year, we've shot up to 68%, which is fantastic. And I'm going to say that our kindergarten teachers, I mean, all of our teachers are killing it, but our kindergarten teachers have really been working with our math coach and implementing evidence-based practices, and it's showing in their data. First grade, same thing. In the iReady math, they're again implementing some of those evidence-based practices, and they're showing that growth from 36% in 2021 to 54% in 22-23. So across the board, you can see all the grade levels in iReady math are showing really good growth and really good I don't want to say really good proficiency because I'm not happy with 64% proficiency, but this is actually above where we were pre-COVID levels. So, and this also correlates pretty strongly to where we should be for the PSSAs, give or take 5 percentage points. But I think, when we get our PSSAs back this year, we're going to be above the levels that we were COVID in elementary math.
So Sherry, can you go back to that slide real quick?
Sure thing.
Just want to point out it doesn't work. If you follow the cohorts diagonally, if you look at first grade, and particularly 36%, and go to that same cohort in second grade and just follow it down, you can see there's an obvious dip there in mathematics that has come up and we've rebounded in math. Literacy is always going to be the challenge, and it's, I think, a nationwide issue that's been slower to recover. The math side has bounced back far faster and than the literacy side.
And I will say, when you follow cohorts, typically what you see is they'll start off high, and then each year you lose more and more students' proficiency. But what you can see right here is, for the most part, there is this little gap right here where they go down 2% proficiency, but for the most part, they're gaining proficiency every year, which is a great thing to see.
So could part of that, first grade where we see where the 59 and then down to that 54, could that have something to do with the larger class sizes for first grade?
It could, but our first grade this year, actually, over at Grayson, I think, larger class size. Bird's class size, because they had that 6th additional teacher this year, theirs was a little bit lower. Not lower class, but theirs was a little bit on par with their normal years. So it could be. Correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, so I don't want to necessarily say that there could be I would say there's a correlation, but that doesn't necessarily mean causation.
So the other thing to remember is that these are not huge data sets. You're talking about 200 kids in a class, so a swing of 5 kids getting 2 more questions wrong can change those percentages. So just a caveat to that as well.
And then again, just a reminder, we don't have our current PSSA math data for 2023 because the students just took it, but just a reminder as to where we were in 2019 pre-COVID and where we were last year for mathematics. So you can see that in general, we had a 6% gap between where we were in 2019 and where we were in 2022. And I think this coming year, based off of the data that I'm seeing with the end of year assessments, that will come in, they're on par of where we were in 2019 or above where we were in 2019. So now 6th grade through 8th grade, the middle school, we don't have as many assessments at the middle school level as we do at the elementary level, but we do use IXL, and there are some diagnostics within IXL that we utilize in the middle school. So we purchased IXL during that 2021 year, so I don't have IXL data prior to that. So this is where we were when we came back from COVID during that hybrid and virtual learning, and this is where we are now. So what you can see in reading is in 6th grade in 2021, 28% of students were on benchmark. This year, 53% of students were on benchmark. 7th grade, 27% were on benchmark. 34 this year, and then in 8th grade, 33 were on benchmark, and this year 39%. Now, looking at the cohort traveling through, so 6th grade's the cohort that has done a complete cycle through the middle school, they went from 28% down to 20%, up to 39%. Now, again, correlation, not causation, but I will say that this 7th grade ELA year, our 7th grade teacher retired in the middle of last year, and she had some long-term subs come in until we could get a permanent placement for her. And even this year, that 7th grade ELA position has sort of been a revolving door position. So that could possibly be why you're not seeing as much going on here in 7th grade, and why you might even have that dip going down in proficiency.
Can you jog my memory? I feel like I remember that we hired some additional reading specialists for the middle school somewhere.
So we do
in there.
have interventionists at the middle school. We have a math interventionist and a reading interventionist, and they are working with our lowest tiered students. But if you're looking at 28% of students on benchmark, that means that there are a lot of students that they can't work with, being that there are only one person for reading. So, our interventionist has been focusing mostly on 6th grade, and then she followed that cohort up to 7th grade.
But those are new-ish positions, right?
Those are new-ish positions with ESSERs, yes.
2 years, right?
This was their 2nd year. Next year will be their 3rd year with ESSER funds.
So with these numbers, would you say that it's more beneficial to have these interventionists at the elementary level, to intervene before they get to the secondary level? Because looking at these numbers, when you look at 20% out of 100% of your students, or 34% of 100% of your students, those numbers are alarming.
So if you want my true opinion, so we want a triangle. So if we're talking about multi-tiered systems of support, we talk about a triangle where in a healthy system, 70 to 80% of your students are proficient at just tier 1 core normal instruction. Tier 2 interventions is usually about 15 to 20% of your students, and that would be your classroom teacher being able to do some interventions with them, so something that goes above and beyond what you're doing at the core level, but it's still being you're still utilizing your classroom teacher to do those interventions. Tier 3 level would be 5 to 10% of your students, and those are the ones that should see an interventionist in a healthy system. So truly, if I'm looking at this, the interventionists help, but even at the elementary level, we're not quite, if I go back, we're not quite at that level, even where the interventionists, again, they're helpful, they're necessary, they're needed, but you got to do something to be able to help those classroom teachers first really know what like how to intervene with their students and how to do class-wide interventions to get that healthy tier instruction. So my personal opinion is I love instructional coaching because those instructional coaches can go into the classrooms and work with the teachers on their data to help class-wide get that tier 1 system. And then you have the interventionists to truly focus on the tier 3 system. If you really look at what our interventionists at the elementary level are doing right now, and you can talk to our reading specialists, and they will say you can't intervene your way out of a healthy core. So they are basically, if you're thinking about a boat with a hole in it, they're shoveling out water, trying to keep that boat afloat, but really they need somebody to plug that hole too. If that makes sense.
And those interventions are working.
Yes,
Are working.
they are
with
working. They are working, and they are doing a fantastic
The neediest
job.
group of that population are getting the interventions. Even with interventions, it's difficult to move them from that place to on grade level. But you can get them to have the literary skills they need to function in a classroom.
But Steph, I guess to answer your question though, my concern with no interventionist at the middle school is then there's truly no support level between the classroom teacher and testing for special education. That interventionist helps to provide services to students to say, do they need special education services or not? So they provide that extra support. I would be very concerned losing interventionists from the middle school. I think like Shippensburg was probably the only middle school around to not have interventionists prior to COVID. So, but do we need extra support and interventionists at the elementary level? Yes, I just don't know if losing them from the middle school level is the best idea.
Speaking with several of even the interventionists and staff at the elementary schools, that's the big concern. It's like once they get to the middle school, it's very hard to remediate versus if it's more learned there, like trying to remediate and like catch up.
Oh, and
It's
you're 100% right. It is
versus to
harder.
invest more at the elementary level, like because some of the numbers that I'm even seeing at the elementary school, I mean, those are also alarming and even on par with Pennsylvania, even though Pennsylvania's numbers aren't the greatest. I mean, I feel like we should be doing
More.
a little better.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you, but I just think that if you take from the middle school, if you take those resources from the middle school, then those kids at the middle school will have nothing to help support them.
I don't want to take from there, but I'm hoping that we can all agree that we need some additional support at the middle school. I've been the elementaries. I've been a huge advocate for interventionists and reading and math at the elementary, and I think that these numbers don't lie, and it really supports that. It's definitely a need.
Yeah, there's no one magic bullet, obviously. Interventions are a key piece. That's your tier 2 and your tier 3s. To Sherry's point, doing everything we can to make sure that our tier 1 is capturing as many kids as possible is equally important. Because there is no one way. To your point, middle school seems to have, across the state, have been the area that's been slowest to bounce back from those effects of COVID. Another key aspect to look at is when we get the PSSA and Keystone data back is to look at that PVAS growth. That's also a good indicator of how far we're moving students who may not show up as proficient, but we're getting more than a year's growth with them, which is more than you can ask of any teacher.
Yeah, I would say historically looking at PVAS through this district, PVAS starts with 4th grade. Historically, our teachers are dark blue teachers, meaning that they have significant evidence that they're making more than a year's worth of growth with the students that they have, which is fantastic. But, we obviously still have some proficiency work.
Is there any other data for middle school, or is this?
So I have the old PSSA data from last year as well, just to show where we were last year compared to where we were in 2019. But then I also wanted to show, I have the pass rates here for the classes as well, since we go to traditional grading in the middle school, but I wanted to show where we were with math as well. So you can see sixth grade this year, we made quite a bit of gains in sixth grade compared to where we were in 2021. So that's a plus. Again, 53% proficient is not something that I'm celebrating, saying woohoo. Sorry, I'm breaking up here. But we are showing some growth here. So again, as you can see from, going down vertically, starting from where we were in 2021 to 22, 23, we are showing some improvements there. And looking at the PSSA data from last year, so in 2019, 46.7% of our sixth graders were proficient or advanced on the PSSA. We were at 24.9% last year. So we still have some major growth to do to help with supplementing that and closing that gap. I did want to go through the pass rates as well. This is something that we looked at during COVID to see where our students were. So I split this up looking at our core courses. So our cores are our math, science, ELA, and social studies. And then I'm looking at all of our coursework. So that includes all of your health and wellness, STEAM, art, music, all of that. So in 1920, prior to COVID, 96% of our students passed their classes, and we had a 4% fail rate. In 2021, we took a big dip where we had 87% pass rate and 13% fail rate. And then we started to recover from that, 95, 93%. We're starting to recover. We're not quite where we were in 1920, but we are starting to recover. Something that I found interesting, in 1920, 94% of our students passed all of their classes. So again, that's including your exploratory classes. 6% failed. I find that interesting that more students are failing the exploratory classes than their core classes, just thinking because that's where you get to explore, and those are more what I deem life skills types of classes and not your pure academic. This is typically, when I think about the exploratory classes, that's where some of your non-academic students tend to find their success. So when I see that the fail rate is actually higher there, I'm sort of at a little bit of a radar as to why is that.
So is the left side the core classes and the right side is exploratory?
Yes, the left side's core classes. Well, right side is all classes, so this does include cores.
Can you elaborate on what the exploratory classes are besides STEM?
So in the middle school, we have health and wellness are included in here. They're not quite exploratories, but they are included in here. Then you have STEAM, music, art, career readiness. And I'm missing one, and I can't remember which one I'm missing. Sorry, I can't remember which one I'm missing at this current moment in time, but I will get that back to you. It's going blank on my head. But this is all of the classes that are offered at the middle school, where these are only the core classes. And then the high school, very quickly, I just wanted to show where we were. I chose 2 Keystone samples because our winter scores are typically lower than our spring scores. So I wanted to compare the spring of 2019 prior to COVID with where we were last spring in 2022. So in algebra, 54% were proficient before COVID, 49% proficient now. Biology has the biggest gap, which is interesting to me as a biology major. I can't quite figure out if math is somewhat recovered, and if you can look at literature, which is recovered, why biology hasn't recovered, because biology is just a combination of math and literature. So I'm a little perplexed on that one there. But looking at our most recent Keystone data, so this was for the students who took the Keystone in the winter. I compared it with the winter 2020 before COVID. You can see that there's a bigger gap between algebra in winter of 2020 compared to winter of 2023. Biology, there's actually a lower gap there. And literature, you still actually were better off in winter 23 than we were in winter 20. So for the algebra, I'm thinking because of its winter Keystone, you're going to see more of a gap. The students that took this Keystone took algebra quad in the winter or in the fall, meaning that they took linear last year had the summer and took a quad in the fall. So that could be why there's a bigger gap, just because they're not as solid on their math skills there. But
Is
that's
there
just a
no-
hypothesis again.
So I guess maybe my question is there not a way to capture that same data in 2020 with when they would?
Well, that's being shown here too. These winter 2020 students also took quad in the fall, so they had that gap as well. But my hypothesis is this gap is a bigger gap because in winter 23 the students just didn't have this as solid of math skills to remember and have that recovery when they come back in the fall as they did in 2020.
And that group would have been, you know, learning fundamental math at the middle school in 2020, which also could be a factor.
So, and then looking at the pass rates for the high school, you know, if we look at 1920 compared to 22-23, we are exactly where we were in 1920, but again, big hit in 2021. And this is for your core classes, so again, your math, science, ELA, and social studies. And this is when you count in all of the classes at the high school, so all of your electives, everything, every class in here. So we're not quite there yet where we were in 1920 compared to 22-23. We still have quite a bit of fail rates for some of those non-core courses. Again, it's a little bit of a bewilderment to me because those typically tend to be where your non-academic students shine. So in summary, as a district, we're showing improvement. I don't think we are where we were before COVID. We'll still have a little bit of time to catch up to truly be where we were before COVID. But even when we get there, that is not good enough. We need to keep growing past then, because even before COVID, we weren't where we need to be for our students. And this is only showing the academic progress. It's not showing the social emotional distress that we are seeing in our students. So if you talk to the building principals, talk to the teachers, they're seeing things in kids, behavior-wise, that they did not see in 1920. And that is impacting the learning that is occurring. So that's where I'm at. Do you guys have any questions?
I appreciate you putting all this together for us. So what kind of plans do we have in place for the next coming, for the upcoming school year to kind of, address some of the big concerns?
So with literacy, the big thing, that's where I think we have, especially at the elementary level, the biggest gains that we have to make. I'm really focusing on structured literacy. So the science of reading and bringing structured literacy in. So the plan was this year, first grade teachers were getting trained in letters. Next year's kindergarten teachers, and then we're going to move up to second, third, fourth, and fifth. So, but I can only do one cohort at a time just because of the time intensity that it is and the number of subs that we have to have. So that's going to still take a while to carry out, but that's going to be the plan. And I really think that, when we start getting into K and 1 being firm and then having 2 and 3 follow along, that's really going to help our 4th and 5th grade teachers out, and then the middle school teachers as well. So that's where we're focusing at for literacy. Math at the middle school, we're going to start Ready Math next year at the middle school. So there's going to be professional development with the math teachers there, focusing on Ready Math and just adding more rigor to some of the questioning that they have. And I think that was what was lacking from the previous resource the teachers utilized. So the curriculum was good. And again, we can tell the curriculum was good because of the growth that they were showing. But some of the questions from the resources that they had didn't really prepare the students for the level of questioning that they would get on high stakes tests. So this resource is going to just help the teachers build that rigor into the curriculum more so. Biology, we have new science standards coming out, so next year's curriculum writing, so that's going to be something that we're focusing on K to 12 for our sciences, but that should help out with biology as well, just to double check and do some of the realignment for their curriculum.
And Sherry, just to be clear, we're going to be switching to those standards, but the test is still going to be at least for 1 or 2 years?
The test is still the same until 25-26, during the 25-26 school year is when the Keystones and PSSAs will switch for science.
So that's going to be an adventure. We're
Yes.
going to be teaching to different science standards and getting tested on others. So
Now the state has said that if we teach the new science standards, that the students should be able to pass the PSSAs and Keystones.
well, that's good to know.
The state has said that.
Okay.
Whether I believe them or not, that's another story. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. So we have one last item on our agenda, but we have run out of time. And I'm sure I am not alone in like being excited to see Mr. Aga's presentation on a profile of a graduate, because this is a key thing that, you know, he's been working on and we've been, I don't know, excited to see. But we need to give it ample time. So
Absolutely.
I guess
Look forward
next-
to the next, the 22nd.
yeah, push it to the next meeting. I'm sure we weren't expecting to spend 23 minutes learning about generators. So let's then adjourn this meeting of the Committee of the Whole, and we will start back up in 4 to 5 minutes with our main board meeting.
All right, explain to me what
I was saying.
Memberships?
there was some discussion about light.
watch girls softball. Now,
Go over and watch
our
this.
system.
Lungs were clear when
But-
they weren't, so.
I thought it was.
Yeah, if it breaks. But here's another thing to think about. I don't care which way.
Tell us what you think.
It's been a wild time.
I worry.
Before or after you were swimming and biking?
After. It was that night I went to bed early and woke up in the middle of the night.
All right. To call this meeting to order, this is the Planning and Action meeting of the Shippensburg Area School District School Board. I am Dr. Nathan Goetz, and if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Here.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Here.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
Here.
Mr. Kurt Noggle.
Here.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Here.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Here.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Here.
Mrs. Steph Aberly.
Here.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Here. All right, thank you. If you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin our deliberations this evening, let us once again be reminded of our duty to represent all of the children of this school community, regardless of age, sex, race, or creed, and regardless of need or ability. This meeting is being live streamed and uploaded to the district's YouTube channel, as a reminder. May we now have, please, a moment of silence to reflect on our thoughts, plans, and actions on behalf of the students of the Shippensburg Area School District, and also on behalf of Richard Laughlin II, who is a 1985 graduate, Betty Suiters, who is a graduate, and especially Erickson. I'm sorry, Koth Pradham, who was a 6th grade middle school student. All right, thank you. This board met last Monday on the 5th of June for a budget and finance meeting, and after that meeting held an executive session to discuss several personnel and contract issues as well as a property issue. Additionally, this board met in conference on Wednesday, June 7th, as we received training and worked to create a tool for the evaluation of our superintendent. All right. Now I'll hear a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Fred Scott second.
second by Mr. Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's taking me a little bit to get back in the swing of things. All right, we have 2 citizen comment periods in our meetings. The first is regarding agenda items. Not seeing any, is there anyone who would like to comment regarding any agenda items today? All righty then. Well, we will move on. All right, next is reports. Do we have a report from the Franklin County Career Center?
Yeah, I do.
Ms. Wolfinger?
So I attended the last Career Tech meeting, and there was some interesting information brought to light. Dr. Schumann shared tons of great information about the cyber charter schools and how they are quickly working to develop their own technology programs to pull students out of current district placement into cyber programs. I think it's important for the community to know and understand that the experience our children receive at FCCTC is not duplicatable, and in my opinion, not a great comparison of what is offered for our students in the cyber world. FCCTC not only provides a complete in-person hands-on experience, but they also offer many programs. And The end goal, of course, is to land our students with certifications and paid jobs at the end of their experience. Cyber charter programs are at the current moment all online and are elective based only versus where FCCTC, they're able to get certified and have that in hand when they're done. So I want you guys to all picture an electrician, a welder, and a nurse. And imagine all three of them never having touched a wire, held a welder, or taken a blood pressure in person. And that's basically the experience of what somebody would receive through the cyber charter programs that they're kind of trying to take kids through. So we shouldn't be fooled, though, because those schools are currently working to expand into some in-person experiences also. But again, they will have no certifications. And they have also begun to recruit in tech centers around us locally. There's already been 5 teachers that have left to go into the cyber charter programs for these programs. And from what I know, there was about 6 more interviews in the upcoming weeks after that meeting. Let's see. But in the same respect, FCCTC is also working on developing some hybrid programming. They've been able to, this past school year, take some of their classes that they offer and offer kind of a home-based learning, also with hands-on. So kind of trying to meet them a little bit at their own, play at their own game a little bit. So they're doing a lot of the book work versus through cyber, but then, of course, have the hands-on strategy. So I think we need to make sure that we continue as a district to share the success that our students receive and how the partnership with Career Tech has assisted so many of our students to be able to have the ability, that don't want to pursue college to go straight into the workforce, so, of their choosing.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfinger. All right, a couple of committees met. The Athletics Committee, is there a report in the Athletics Committee? Dr. Lyman, is that you?
You're taxing my memory. Help me out, Levi.
Gotcha. So the athletic committee met. We discussed basically it was a review of each season, fall, primarily on the spring sports. We did talk about girls wrestling, and Ms. Fanis gave us an updated schedule of things that were going on. I don't have the numbers with me, but we had like a decent amount of young ladies who started going to open gyms for girls wrestling, which is cool. We also discussed and then kind of made a recommendation, which I think ended up being into the budget meeting last Monday, which of course is also in the budget for tonight, which talked about some assistant coaches. I believe those were cross country at the middle school, which where I think we have like 54 kids or something and only one paid position. Is that right, sir?
Yes, paid position of volunteer.
Yep. And then the other one I think was the like a part-time a bocce coach position, I believe, being paid, and then also the approval of a part-time athletic trainer, which I believe is for like 400 hours, which I believe is also being paid for out of the athletic.
That is coming out of athletic fund balance. Correct.
So, and then after that, I think that was about it.
All right, thank you. The Budget and Finance Committee meeting, as I mentioned, met last week. I'm not going to attempt to give that is a committee of the whole meeting, and I'm not going to attempt to give a summary of that meeting other than to say that a final budget was presented.
Are you sure you don't want to give it a try?
I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Just checking.
But it is on our YouTube channel if you're so inclined to review the contents of that meeting. Were there any other committees that met that I am unaware of? All righty. Next, curriculum report.
I actually emailed Tammy I thought I was supposed to present my my committee of the whole presentation here, so I actually have nothing for you guys.
All right. And that brings us to the superintendent report.
Thank you, Dr. Goetz. First, just wanted to update the board on enrollment. As of June 1st, we're sort of district-wide, not really moving that much, but the totals for the elementary K-3 are 1,095 students. Our intermediate building had 561 as of that date. Our middle school had 785. And our high school senior high total was 1,141 with 24 students in various placements at the IU and the Lincoln IU. for a grand total of 3,606, which I know the board likes to keep score here, is 181 more students than last year at this time.
Did you say 181?
Yes, sir. On to donations, we would like to acknowledge the following folks. An anonymous gift of $130 to the Shippensburg Area Senior High Facility Dog Program. I'm sure Meadow appreciates that. $1,000 miscellaneous donations to support the Shippensburg Area FFA Greenhouse. Miscellaneous monetary donations to support the FFA Greenhouse as well, a total of $450. Minnequaw Social Club, $100 monetary donation to support our FFA. Hub City Club, $500 donation to support our FFA. Folsinger Bricker Funeral Home and Crematorium, a $50 monetary donation to support our woodworking club. Inside Scoop with $50 to support our woodworking club. Mr. Gleason, $100 to support our high school woodworking club. Mr. Cody Moser, I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with that one. Odiomosa, thank you. Fine woodworking, pens with a $375 gift to support our high school PBIS. Kiwanis Club of Shippensburg, a $200 donation for our track and field meet at the high school. Miscellaneous donations from T-shirt sales to the total of $148 to support the high school track and field meet. And Nancy Grayson PTO sports themed books in memory of kindergarten teacher Emily Deal's family, and an I Survive book set to be placed at the library at the Nancy Grayson Elementary School of an approximate value of $451.55. Thank you. That concludes my report, Dr. Goetz.
I'm seeing here a recognition of retired district employees. Is that also part of your
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
report?
So this time of year is always difficult as we say goodbye to great people. And this group of educators has certainly, even in my short time, demonstrated how valuable they are, and they will all be greatly missed. First up, we'd like to mention Melanie Bachman, high school language arts teacher, 21 years. Roger Byers, district custodian, 14 years, 5 months. Elizabeth Denning, nurse at the middle school, 27 years with us. Michelle Dubbs, high school counselor of 33 years. She will be so missed that Shippensburg University came down and did a special retirement recognition for her work with them. Margaret Gallagher, high school head cook for 8 years. Bob Mag, high school music teacher, band director, 33 years, and another huge hole. Elizabeth Minnick, high school social studies teachers, 18 years and 5 months. And A.J. Norton, our high school and middle school assistant principal for 22 years. I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank all these individuals for their service to the district and wish them a happy and joyous retirement.
I personally get a little bit of chills thinking about like the length of service of some of these individuals and their commitment to the district, and I'd want to ditto that note of appreciation. Many of these folks were working in the district before I even had heard of Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. But when I see these names and I see the length of service, I think of the folks who had similar positions where I went to school, which feels like the other side of the world. And it just reminds me of, that our, the world is full of people who quietly go about doing their work, making the world as it is. I mean, we often talk about, being in this for the kids and that our schools exist for the kids, but frankly, schools exist for much more than that. They exist to hold together the social fabric of society, and when we have good schools, we have strong economies. We have good society, and I don't know. For what it's worth, my thank you for their commitment, for doing their part to contribute to creating the society that we have. So thank you. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. First, we have, so item 4A is approval of the minutes from our last board meeting. Item 4B is the finance report, which the various reports are attached. Item 4C is an agreement with News Story for special education services. News Story provides educational services to children with special education requirements. This proposed agreement is for one student is this for the 22-23 year? Is this for the past school year, or is this for the upcoming school year?
This was the one, I think, from the last meeting that was for the 22-23 school year.
So this is for the,
Correct.
okay. Item 4D is Mobile Ag Ed Science Lab. This is presumably a renewal of this program because I saw the van out there this just a couple weeks ago. This is for the James Byrd Elementary School in May of the coming year. The cost of this program is $3,000 and will be paid out of the James Byrd Student Activity Account budget. Item 4E is updates to athletic job titles. Nothing changing here, just some of the names to be consistent with what is recommended by the PIAA. Item 4F is an athletic training agreement. Administration recommends renewing the 5-year contract with Shippensburg Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine to provide athletic training services. Item 4G is various operations and maintenance renewal agreements. There's actually 3 of them here. These are renewal agreements with Water Treatment by Design to test the water at 3 of our buildings. FMX, which provides the scheduling software, I believe, that we use to schedule school, community, and athletic events along with maintenance requests and routine maintenance, along with RJ McCarville Associates is a 3-year renewal contract for inspections of the basketball backstops. Item 4H, District Registrar job position. So this is approval of the creation of a job description for District Registrar. Item 4I, Business Office Assistant job description, which is attached. Item 4, let's go to that point, item 4I. So, do I hear a motion for the approval of items 4A through 4I?
Motion to approve.
Actually, I should have asked first if anyone would like to take any of those items separately. So, excuse me, Ms. Wolfinger, if we can just back up 30 seconds. Would anyone like to take any of those issues separately?
Yes, all of them.
You'd like to take each one separately? Okay. Item.
Sorry, I'm in the wrong section. We can do this one.
We can do this together?
Yeah. I'm ahead of myself.
All right. I'm willing to do it. Okay.
We need to back up again.
Hearing no one would like to take any of those separately. Ms. Wolfinger, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion.
I will second her motion.
And Ms. Eberly will second the motion to approve items 4A through 4I. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to item 4J, which is personnel. So there are a number of these, and I'm not going to read through them all. There are a number of retirements, many of which we outlined, FMLA qualifying leave requests, transfers, resignations, and promotions. So is there a motion to approve item 4J?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Eberly. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and item 4K, which is also a personnel item, is the approval of Andrea N. Piles, who is principal, to be approved as principal at James Byrd Elementary School. Hiring dependent upon successful completion of all required paperwork and clearances. Is there a motion to approve item 4K?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Second.
second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion?
Is she in the district now?
She is here, and she's actually in this meeting. I was going to invite her to introduce herself after this, but we could do it before if you would rather.
I just wondered if she was in the district. I know I talked to Doc before.
Oh no, she's. Are you saying is she an internal hire?
Yes.
She is
No,
not.
I mean, he said. I just wondered.
Yeah.
No big deal.
She comes from a neighboring school district to the south, I believe.
Okay. No big deal.
Any discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, as I mentioned, Ms. Piles is here today, and she generously agreed to introduce herself to the board. Ms. Piles. Am I saying your name correctly? There's a microphone right there. You have to talk into the microphone because we're being broadcast live. The folks at home want to be able to hear you too.
Right. I'm very excited to embark upon my journey at James Byrd Elementary. I have worked in the Chambersburg School District for the past 15 years, and I'm excited to take the helm with educational experience and leadership opportunities at Shippensburg.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming,
Congratulations.
Andrew.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the action agenda. Item 5A is the district camera purchase. Administration recommends the approval of the proposal with Triangle Communications to purchase cameras for all district buildings. The total cost of just over $370,000 will be funded through the following sources. $152,000 from physical safety grant monies, $152,000 from general fund monies, $50,000 from PDE Office of Safe Schools grant, and $16,000 from assigned fund balance for district safety. I should also mention, I believe that this is the recommendation of, is it the safety committee that took this on?
Yeah.
Somebody help me out that? And this is the recommendation that this be approved. Is there a motion to approve item 5A?
Fred Scott make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Suitors. Any discussion?
Yes, this doesn't include the radios, does it? It's just
That's a separate thing, Mr. Scott.
that's going to come later.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So I have lots of concerns about it. I've emailed back and forth and kind of shared those, but I want to make sure, that I express them so that the board knows my concerns as well. And most of them kind of surround the warranties and that whole process. So we had 3 different people that we were seeking bids from. The first one we currently use, which was Siemens, and then the second one, which was Verkada, and then the third one, which is Triangle. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess for me, my concern is that with the option that we're choosing, they are going to warranty the cameras that they install for 5 years. But we're going to have several, I think it's like around 20-ish per building, both in the middle school and the high school, of cameras that were Siemens cameras that are not going to be warrantied. And so when one of those cameras breaks, we're going to have to pay for a camera right on the bat because they're not going to be warrantied with the new company. Versus Verkada, which was going to do a 10-year warranty for all cameras, including the existing cameras. So we would not incur that expense, that additional expense, should one of those cameras breaks. So I guess that's my concern, is that we're going to have additional costs coming in because none of the existing cameras that we have are actually under warranty through Siemens right now. So basically, if one breaks, we're putting the bill. So what does that bill look like? How much is a camera going to cost if one breaks?
It'd probably be cheaper, still cheaper, because they had licenses that we had to buy for every camera. The Triangle, we don't have to do that.
What do you mean?
You got to.
Chad, come on up.
Remember how much it was per camera they charged us?
I thought that was included in their quote.
No,
That's-
they're nuts. There's a yearly fee.
Isn't working? Okay. Yeah, what were you asking about?
They had a fee that we had to pay them annually or
Correct.
Triangle, we have none.
We do not have an annual fee. I think there is a little bit of a maintenance that if we have to use them for that a maintenance fee we would have to use, but yeah, that is correct. There was a one-time licensing fee through Triangle, which was already included in that quote. And Verkada had the licensing that was every
Every year.
10
Yeah.
years.
the warranty was 10 years, but I think the licensing
The licenses were good for 10 years.
in the quote, you're right. In
Yeah.
the quote was included, had the 10 years included, I believe,
Right.
or 5 years, but I
It
don't.
was 10.
Okay, so the quote included their licensing. What was the other question you were speaking about? Oh,
Cost to
if
replace
a
a
camera
camera.
were to break, I mean, it depends on what camera it would be and where it's used at, but I mean, I'm thinking I'll throw $500 out there to replace a camera.
And how many cameras are in the high school and in the middle school that are through our current carrier, through Siemens, that or we're going to have to replace eventually?
Yeah, it's a lot. I heard you mention 20. I would say the high school, I'll throw out there, has maybe 30 to 40 in the high school, maybe 20 some in,
And we were gonna get 47.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Like, I thought that we had like 27 and.
In high school?
To
And then,
to like 47.
yeah, and the middle school is going to be, yeah, probably 40 total in the middle school.
So 80, let's just say 80 cameras, right? $500 a piece. That's an additional $40,000 expense.
Well, not all, of the- some of those would be.
As, I'm saying as you're
Yes,
replacing them.
Right, right.
So years, right? We're talking about years.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had any problems with any of the cameras. I haven't heard of anything problems like that. I don't think the thing that happens with cameras is the technology gets old.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. The cameras that we currently have in the middle school or the high school, they're not going to be like they're kind of just like hall monitor cameras at this point. If we were to go with this new system, whoever we decide to go with, Triangle, Verkada, the cameras that are new and are going to be put in are going to be like our first like main cameras that we're going to be using anyhow. So as far as personally, as far as the camera going down, I don't have that's just me. I don't have a concern for that happening and us having to spend money to replace it. It is nice that if they were to warranty, the ones that we currently do have, that of course that would be a great bonus to have. Any other questions?
All right, any other? Yeah, thanks, Chad. I mean, you can stay up there. There might be some other questions. Any other questions or comments regarding item 4A, or sorry, 5A?
Did you call referrals for both of the companies?
I checked on Pasbo. I didn't hear anything back on Triangle, and I did hear one school district, I forget what it was, that used Verkada. It wasn't positive or negative. It was just, yes, we use them, and they were, okay, it wasn't a lot said on them. But again, I didn't hear anything back on, I did hear back from people that have still use Siemens.
Triangles, where is it located?
Triangles is local. I mean, they're New Cumberland.
So they're in the state of Pennsylvania.
They're close. Now, again, with Verkada also, they are stationed out of Baltimore, but their local representative is from Hanover. So it's not awfully far away either.
The business is Pennsylvania.
It is, and so as far as the Triangle, their products are also American-made versus
Correct.
the other ones were not.
That's,
They were too.
no, the other one's from overseas. Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Anything else?
All right, well, as I'm hearing a little bit of, dissent perhaps, could we have a roll call vote on item 5A?
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman,
Yes.
Mr. Kurt Noggle,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
No.
Mrs. Steph Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. All right, item 5B is a resolution calling for the revision of the current payment structure for cyber school students. The board may wish to adopt the ADAPT resolution to meaningfully revise the current payment structure for cyber charter school students to provide relief to local school districts and taxpayers. So this is a request for action to our state legislature. Is there a motion to approve item 5B?
Fred Scott making.
Motion made by Mr. Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Everly. Any discussion?
So there needs to be a revision in there. It should say but carry none. It says but carry one
I'm sorry, where?
in the actual document.
In the actual document?
Yeah, it should say but carry none.
We'll make that revision.
Thank you. All in favor of item 5B?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5C is a MOU, or MOA, between the Shippensburg Area School District and the Shippensburg Area Educational Support Association regarding the pay level classifications for 2 secretarial positions with the change of job responsibilities. The MOA is attached. Can I hear a motion to approve item 5C?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Everly,
Second.
second by Dr. Lyman. Any
Ms.
discussion?
Wolfinger.
Ms. Wolfinger.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wolfinger. The motion was made by Ms. Wolfinger. Oof. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5D, Greyhound Paw Print Sculpture Project. The administration recommends the approval of engaging the services and craftsmanship of Dr. Steve Doblin. It's going to be mad at me. I can't say his name. Sculpture Hatchery Studio to produce a stainless steel sculpture of a greyhound paw print to promote school spirit and school pride. This sculpture will be approximately 6 feet by 4 feet by 1 foot and will be placed at the rear entrance of the high school. The cost of the sculpture will be $4,800 and will be paid for by the class of 2023. Should mention that Dr. Doblin produced the Greyhound sculpture, which is on the front side of the building, so presumably this will match. It'll be a similar style and color and whatnot for the back of it. I think this is something to be pretty excited about. Is there a motion to approve item 5D?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5E is the generator for the high school. So we have heard the proposal for, there are 2 options to fulfill the generator proposal. We talked about these during the committee of the whole. The first proposal is for the CAT 200 kilowatt, $300,000 option, and the second proposal is for the Cummins 500 kilowatt, $407,000 option. So we need a motion to go with either proposal number 1, which is the 200 kilowatt option, or proposal number 2 for the 500 kilowatt option. So is there a motion for either one of those proposals?
Number 1.
So Mr. Suiters makes a motion to approve proposal number 1. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kressler. Any discussion?
Yeah, did anybody ever check to see if there's any money available for if we use it as shelter in place, the school district? Did anybody ever check on that?
I did not, Mr. Board. I'm not familiar with there being payments for
No,
it.
I'm not either, but I'm not saying there's not something out there.
You mean a grant, Jim?
Do what?
Talking about a grant?
Well, I don't know whether like FEMA would give you, something, anything like that. I mean, you're gonna use it as a shelter in place.
Yeah, I
they
think
could
that's how
bring
that.
us people here.
I think that's how it got started. And at the time, I didn't see anything, but as far as checking, I don't think anybody else checked to see if they get a grant for it.
And Pennsylvania Emergency Management be the source? I'm just asking, because they usually handle all emergency situations in the state, the grant money and everything else.
Right. That was a year ago. If there's something now, I haven't currently checked.
Well, if we're gonna approve this, it might be worth doing a check on that before we pull the trigger and sign the check to see if there are other options.
Well, yeah, we discussed it tonight, but it never was on the discussion agenda anyhow. How comes it just went straight to action?
I believe it was on Budget and Finance, and it also was reported out of committee
Okay.
reports as well. One thing I would like to add, just when we're talking about, the generator, when we're considering immediate need versus being proactive and, a lot of our decisions, I mean, sometimes this district has a history of maybe being a little proactive or reactive when it comes to decision-making. For an additional 100,000, we literally could be a shelter in place. Lord forbid, something unforeseen, inclement weather, we could literally be a shelter in place for our most vulnerable community members, being our elderly or children. And I think that, beyond just being a school entity, that we really should look into that and to see if funding is available, if that's in our
I agree with you.
disaster plan.
I agree with you, but if we would have had this on discussion agenda, we would be on there. Instead of going to action, it shouldn't be on here.
So, I mean, it was kind of discussed, but I mean,
No,
you were
fine,
also
you
the
can
one
have a
that wanted some
conversation
of
out
the
in hallway.
safety
We can't say
security
we did it,
issues
we
brought.
deliberated on it.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with moving it back. I mean, what we're talking about, it's been discussed.
But I think there's other things on here tonight that wasn't on the discussion.
That's true, and we can talk about those when we get to it. I mean, right now, we have a motion on the table for proposal number one. If you oppose the motion on procedural grounds, then, feel free to, voice your opposition, and we can instruct administration to move this to the discussion agenda.
Is there some timeliness? Is there a rush for this? I know you sent an email out that there were some items on the agenda that we had some deadlines that we needed to face.
The thing I'll say is this was on a discussion months ago. I did think we had it on last meeting, but maybe not. But I know like months ago when this got started, this was on discussion, and that was in November. And in that timeline, we had to raise it. I think it's written on there on the agenda how much it was raised. So when I first got the quote, was under 300 and under $400,000, and now just when we talked about it in November, it's raised. I think what is it, 15% if it's written on there.
5%.
Okay, 5%. So in 6 months we've lost 5%, or it's 5% more expensive. So that right now is the only thing I would say that we'd have to watch for.
So I don't have last meeting's agenda in front of me, but this has been on the discussion agenda.
I would just like to say that this item was a discussion item, number J on the May 22nd board meeting.
So,
For clarification.
So it didn't look in its current form. It didn't have the two
Correct.
proposals, but we certainly had the generator on the discussion last meeting and several times.
And that's when Mr. Noggle asked about, do we need a generator of that size? So I said at that
And
time.
it was for the larger size of the
Right.
407,000 on the discussion agenda as item
Right.
J.
So the 200 kW, right, that just came about after the discussion. So that is a brand new option.
If we go with the 200 kW and then find out that there's options or funding to do something better with our high school to serve additional needs for our community, do we have to scrap the 200 and bring in the other one, or can you sort of like cobble two 200s together? I am not.
Yeah, you
familiar
wouldn't want to
with these kind of things.
do that, but if there was grants, I don't know anything about writing grants, but the way it sounds, if we did find one, I think you'd almost have to start all over. The way it seems, I don't know.
Well, the question of whether one would qualify for a grant and the other one wouldn't, I think we're making assumptions there that we don't know anything about, right? We don't know that one wouldn't qualify or the other, right? I mean, having a generator at all, even if it's just emergency power, would probably meet the qualifications. I mean, if we have a disaster, the school is going to be a place to go, and we're going to be able to provide heat and we're going to light and be able to take care of people. It's not going to be like a fully functional building, but it would be.
Last winter, I did get a call from the borough when, was there like a period here in Shippensburg that we lost power for 3, 4, 5 days or something like that? And they were worried about not getting it on or something happened.
The eastern end of town had a problem.
Yeah, there was.
We had eastern end, we got.
Yeah, and they were worried. It was actually one of the very cold periods of our winter, which was an awesome winter. But we did lose power, and they were concerned about having enough time getting on. And I got a call. It was over a weekend, and they asked if we were capable of being able to bring people in if we needed to. So as rare as it sounds, and luckily they didn't have to do it. But no, they asked me if I had any buildings that had it, and of course we didn't.
And both of these options would allow for that. I mean,
it would provide heat. We would provide heat,
Yeah,
right?
Right. I mean, obviously it would be better with the larger unit, but we're not preventing ourselves from being able to provide that service with the smaller unit.
Plus, we have additional buildings with gen sets as well.
So I will look into, and maybe Sherry can help look into the
I just
possibility
did
of
a
getting
quick
it.
search on Pima. I didn't see anything. I mean, that was a 3-minute search on my phone.
I did a quick search, and I don't know if school districts apply, but local governments, and I consider kind of us sometimes can be considered a local government, and I found stuff on DCED
DCED.
or emergency shelter.
So we can explore those options, and if, and bring that information to the board, and we can amend that decision before we do anything with it.
I'd like to make a motion just to table this until we can get some instruction as to if it's available and to what's going to be more fiscally responsible and to impact the community to.
All right, presently there's a motion to table the motion. Is there a second for that tabling motion? Second by Ms. Wolfinger. So tabling motions don't allow for discussion. So we'll have a roll call vote, please, on the tabling motion.
The other motion should be rescinded before we do another motion.
That we were in the discussion phase of.
But I will rescind my motion.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't know who seconded it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm not sure what you're doing.
So there was already a motion that we were supposed to vote on. We were in the discussion phase, so it.
Right, but the tabling motion supersedes
Supersedes
that?
it? No. Okay.
So
You got to rescind the other one.
I don't think you do, actually, because the tabling motion supersedes it. I might be wrong, but so let's just vote on the tabling motion, and if it's tabled, then it'll come back next meeting, and if it's not, then you can rescind your motion.
Charlie, are you okay with rescinding your? I mean, is it going to be like I don't want to animosity. Are you okay?
I'm just telling you what we used to do. I mean, I thought that we did it right, but if we didn't, we didn't.
I'm
Every time someone on this board makes a comment, you don't have to snap at them.
Am I snapping? I apologize if you feel snapped at.
I think that's why we don't have discussions.
All right, well, as I understand it, we have a tabling motion on the table, and that supersedes the motion that was on. So we can vote on the tabling motion, and if that motion passes, then the motion will be tabled until next meeting. If it doesn't pass, then we can rescind the motion, or we can continue discussion on that motion. So roll call on the Eberly-Wolfinger tabling motion, please.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
No.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
No.
Mr. Kurt Noggle.
No.
Mr. Fred Scott.
I don't know what we're doing. Can I abstain?
So it's a motion to table the motion on it's a motion to table this issue, to not talk about it anymore today. So if you want to vote on the generator issue, then you should vote no on the tabling motion. If you do not want to vote on the generator issue in this meeting, you should vote yes on the tabling motion.
But it is to get more information if we can get grants for this.
So
to
that's
pay.
all I want, getting more information.
Yes.
So whatever one you want to pay, yes or, yes or no? Yes, okay.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
No.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mrs. Steph Aberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
No.
5 no, 4 yes. Motion carried to table. Did I say this wrong? I'm sorry, motion failed.
Okay. So now we are back to, I believe, the original motion. So, and that motion was made by Mr. Suiters? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
And you want to withdraw your motion?
Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Suiters wants to withdraw his motion. Mr. Kressler, you seconded that motion.
So, let me be clear.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's just.
I did. So if
withdrawn.
Mr. Suiters withdraws his motion, do I have the ability then to place the motion back on the table?
You
Okay.
absolutely can.
Perfect. So I
yes.
will withdraw my second on that.
Okay. So now, is there a motion to approve either proposal 1 or proposal 2?
Motion to approve proposal number 2.
Wow, okay, so Ms. Eberly has made a motion to approve item or proposal number 2. Is there a second?
Scott seconds.
Mr. Scott seconds that motion. Any discussion?
So what are we going to not worry about if there's money out there? We're just going to vote this in? We're not going to worry whether there's, somebody's out there going to give us $200,000 towards this, we're just going to vote this in, or how's this going to work? I don't
So,
understand.
as I understand it, we have a motion on the table to approve proposal number 2. I don't believe that precludes administration for looking for options for grants, right? So we can sort of end this meeting having approved a particular proposal, but also give administration the directive to look for grant monies or other options. And if those become available and it is necessary to modify the proposal, then administration can come back with the next meeting with a request for us to modify the proposal.
So can Mr. Bard or myself amend this to say, a motion to approve the 500 kilowatt with the expectation that administration will look into possible grants?
So I don't know that we need to do a board action on that. We would do that anyway and report back to the board if there are available.
I'm feeling like we do.
Okay. So if option 2 is approved, and there are grants available, we would just have to bring them for the board to approve those grants if we were ultimately successful in getting with them, and then those would just reduce the cost of that item.
But if option 2 is approved, we're committing ourselves to spending the 400.
Correct.
Well, my thing, I mean, just me, if there's money out there and it covers, let's go for option 2. But if there's not money out there, now I'm off looking at option 1.
My other thing here is option 2 was the initial recommendation from administration to begin with, is what I'm also looking at.
But didn't that change because of Mr. Noggle's recommendation from the last board meeting, and that's where we came up with this cheaper option?
Well, I hear Mr. Creech saying one thing, and then I hear Mr.
So
August another.
Not being an expert in generators or electricity, the new proposal came in under, and it met the needs. So, Mr. Creets and I, conferred and felt that it meets the needs. If it's the board's wish to become a shelter in place, then that would be the reason why we would want to do the higher option. We certainly can. Yeah, I'm a little skeptical of being able to get those grants and the timeline that it would take to get them. Grant processes don't move fast, and there's no guarantee that we'll get them. And putting off a decision on the generator through that process could be lengthy and leave us vulnerable with a generator from 1950, and potential increased costs, which may potentially negate any grants that we would get having gone through that process. So I think there's a probability that we could be extending out the time to put this issue to rest, and ultimately, even with grants, pay the same amount.
For me,
I think one thing we know for almost certain is the longer we put this out, the higher the costs are going to be. I feel like that's close to a guarantee, as we might have, and there is no guarantee that we're going to get grant money towards this.
For me, it's proposal 2 is future. I just think there's things going to come, and why do Pat more providing for the thinking about the future, what we want to need. Building, we're going to need more building space. Everybody says that. Everybody knows that. Why pigeonhole yourself in one spot? Just looking at the future. That's nobody wants to spend $100,000, but it's not going to put us in bum row either. So, that's why I'm for proposal 2.
All right, is there any other discussion? Presently, we have a motion on the table to approve proposal number 2. All right, could we have a roll call vote, please? Remember, this is a motion to approve proposal number 2.
Dr. Michael Lyman,
No.
Mr. Kurt Noggle,
No.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
No.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
No.
Mr. Jim Bard,
No.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
No.
Mrs. Steph Aberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
No. All right, sorry.
There you go. 7 no, 2 yes. Motion failed.
All right, so that motion failed. Is there another motion on this
Sure.
item?
Let's try this. Third time's the charm. I'd like to place the motion on the table to approve proposal number 1, the 200 kilowatt.
I will second that.
All right, motion made by Mr. Kressler, seconded by Mr. Suiters. This is a motion to approve proposal number 1. Is there any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kurt Noggle,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
No.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman,
Yes.
Mrs. Steph Aberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
I mean, this does not preclude us still looking for grant money.
Correct, and
No,
the
it's-
administration will do that and see what's available.
Democracy at work. All right, item 5F is a land development plan. Administration recommends the approval of the proposal from Royer and Associates to perform a land development survey and check out the current septic system on the property on Molly Pritchard Highway. This is the new property that the district purchased for district offices. Estimated cost of the land development plan is $5,000. Estimated cost of checking the current septic system is $1,000. The cost will be taken from the assigned fund balance, and the proposal is attached. Is there a motion to approve item 5F?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman.
Second.
It was Mr. Suiters.
It was Mr. Suiters. Motion made by Mr. Suiters. Second by Ms. Wolfinger. Is there any discussion?
I got a question. This is the money you set aside beside the purchase of the building. This was coming out of.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, now items 5G, H, I, and J these are items that we have seen in the Budget and Finance meeting, and these were discussed then, but these were not on past discussion agendas. And the reason for the expediency here is that all of these have to do with ordering new furniture or preparing buildings and properties for the upcoming school year, and so there is some expediency here. So item 5G is a furniture quote for middle school teachers. This is furniture for the teachers, so administration recommends the approval of this quote from WB Mason Interiors for 8 desks and chairs for teachers at the middle school as part of the middle school renovation project. The cost is under $11,000 and will come from assigned fund balance. The quote is attached. Is there a motion to approve item 5G?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5H is furniture for the new administration building. You have the attached furniture quote. This revised quote was received at the end of May and reflects updated costs. Cost to it not to exceed $58,569.09 will be paid for by the assigned fund balance. Is there a motion to approve item 5H?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman,
Second.
second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5I is a quote for flooring for the new administration building. Administration recommends the approval of the estimate from Advantage Flooring for carpet tiles for the new administration building. The cost for flooring and installation comes to $10,837 and will come from assigned fund balance. Is there a motion to approve item 5I?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman,
Second.
second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5J is quote for painting of the new administration building. Administration's received 3 estimates for painting the walls and ceilings. All estimates do not include any drywall repair, painting of shutters, main entrance, and some other areas. Administration recommends awarding Beam Painting Limited the contract to paint the walls and ceiling of the new building at a cost of $5,665. Any drywall repair would be extra. All 3 quotes are attached. Is there a motion to approve item 5J?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, item 5K brings us to our 23-24 final general fund fund budget. Administration recommends the approval of the attached 23-24 final general fund budget with revenues in the amount of $65,435,997 and expenditures in the amount of $67,116,719. Enactment of the following 23-24 tax rates to the adjusted Act index of 5.4% are required to support this budget. And there you can see the millage amounts given that tax increase. The use of the following fund balance is necessary to support and balance the 23-24 final budget. $400,000 from committed fund balance to support the new 7th grade teachers, and $1,280,722 from unassigned fund balance. Is there a motion to approve item 5K?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kressler. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm voting no for the tax increase. I just spoke before why I think it's going to be a burden on a lot of taxpayers.
Any other comments?
I would just say thank you to Christy and the administration for all the work on that. It was a lot to educate all of us about all of these numbers, so thank you very much.
We'll ditto that comment. All right, roll call, please, on item 5K.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Figures. Yes.
Mr. Charlie Sears,
No.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman,
Yes.
Mr. Kurt Noggle,
No.
Mrs. Steph Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no, motion carried.
Thank you. Passing the budget is always worthy of celebration. I feel like we should have a little applause or something. Item 5L is the 23-24 Homestead Farmstead Exclusion Resolution. If I'm not mistaken, this is just a sort of, we do this every year with the budget. Is that correct? This is kind of a,
That's correct. So this is if residents apply, if it's your primary residence, you can apply for like a rebate or a discount on your tax bills. So that's the homestead farmstead exclusion. So this has to be just passed separately, but along with the budget.
is there a motion to approve item 5L?
Red Scott, make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Scott,
Second.
second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5M is the 23-24 Capital Maintenance Fund Balance Expenditures Request. Administration recommends the approval of the following 23-24, I said faculty, facility maintenance capital expenditure requests as presented during the 23-24 budget process. Funding source is noted in the table below. Items noted as presented separately either have been or on agendas for separate approval. Is there a motion to approve item 5M?
Motion to approve?
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Eberly. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm looking at this. Where's this money coming from? Out of fund balance or just set aside?
Yeah, so the majority of them are coming from the capital maintenance fund balance. It's kind of hard to see that the lines didn't appear on the table. So that's the majority, except for the cameras, which we're using some grant money to help pay for that. But the majority of them are coming from our capital maintenance fund balance.
That's separate from the fund balance?
It's in the fund balance, but it's designated for capital maintenance projects.
It's a subset of that, Mr.
Okay, that's what I want to figure out. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on item 5M? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great, thank you. Item 5N, 23-24 Food Service Capital Expenditure Requests. Administration recommends the approval of the following 23-24 Food Service Capital Expenditure Requests as presented during the 23-24 budget process. All expenditures will be paid for from the Food Service Fund from excess revenues received over the last several fiscal years. And you can see the table there, various items, freezers, refrigerators, sneeze guards, et cetera. Is there a motion to approve item 5N?
Motion to approve?
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Second.
second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Item 5O, the creation of a STAR teacher at SACE. STAR, I believe, stands for Shippensburg Therapeutic Academic Resource. Is that right, Ms. Woodall?
Correct.
Thank you. So administration recommends the board approve the creation of a full-time STAR teacher at Shippensburg Area Intermediate School. This position is included in the 23-24 budget and was part of the personnel requests presented during the 23-24 budget process. Is there a motion to approve item 5O?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman,
Second.
second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion?
What's going to be the cost of this?
She's lucky.
I don't have it broke down with me. So when we presented this at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, we said if we do a STAR teacher, we're also going to need a registered behavior technician. So the two of those positions combined is $160,017. Just an estimate, probably about 100,000 of that is the STAR teacher, and about 60,000 of that is the RBT, the registered behavior technician.
So, yep, sorry, go ahead. So the registered behavioral technician is the next agenda item.
So for both positions, it was actually $160,017. Otherwise, if we would have to do it out of district, it would be over 167. So there was a cost savings of almost $7,500.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5P is the creation of the registered behavioral technician. So this is the other piece of that. Administration recommends the board approve the creation of this full-time position for Shippensburg Area Intermediate School. This position is included in the 23-24 budget and was presented as part of the personnel requests in that budget process. Is there a motion to approve item 5P?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman, seconded by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5Q, creation of an ESL teacher at the elementary level. So administration recommends the board approve the creation of a full-time English as a second language. So that means, that stands, ESL is the abbreviation for that. Teacher at the elementary level. This position is included in the 23-24 budget and is part of the personnel requests. Is there a motion to approve item 5Q?
So
Motion
moved.
approved.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger, second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5R, creation of a first grade teacher at Nancy Grayson. So administration recommends the board approve the creation of a full-time first grade teacher at Nancy Grayson Elementary School. This position has also been included in the budget process. Is there a motion to approve item 5R?
Motion approved.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Red Scott, second.
second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion?
Just a question, have we figured out where it's going to be, where the housing of that teacher is going to be?
Yeah, Jeremy had figured out for the first grade teacher, I can't remember exactly what he's doing there, but he does have a position for there. And then the second grade teacher at James Byrd is going to go into the music room, and music will be on a cart next year.
Okay. Have we looked in, I believe Mr. Scott had requested you guys to see about what the cost would be for portables, portable classrooms. Have we looked into that and
We
gotten?
haven't
the
at this
cost
point, but I will.
Any other discussion on item 5R? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5S is the creation of a second grade teacher position at James Byrd Elementary. This position has also been included in the 23-24 budget and was part of the personnel requests in that budget process. Is there a motion to approve item 5R?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Second.
second by Mr. Suiters.
It was me.
It was Dr. Lyman, second by Dr. Lyman. I thought your voices would sound so similar. Maybe I just can't hear out of my right ear. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed, sorry. All right, item 5T, creation of a transportation secretary. Administration recommends the board approve the creation of a part-time transportation secretary for
Did we just do one twice?
I mean, I just did 5S, didn't I? Isn't that what we just
You
voted on?
Well, you said R twice, I think.
Did I do 5R twice?
I think so.
Said the letter, but you said
I
the
think you said
position
R,
correctly.
but it's okay. You know,
All right, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so that last one was 5S. We voted on the creation of a second grade teacher at James Byrd Elementary. Now we're to 5T, which is the creation of a transportation secretary. So administration recommends the board approve the creation of a part-time transportation secretary position for 5 hours per day, 260 days per year. This is in addition to the current full-time transportation secretary, and this position was also included in the 23-24 budget process and was part of the personnel requests. Is there a motion to approve item 5T?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Second.
second by Dr. Lyman. Any discussion?
For me, I have a discussion. How much, Christy, how much money did we save by bringing that, you said, but how much would you bring by bringing that outing back to the school district?
That is correct. So we were currently paying Boyo $46,000 to do the routing for regular transportation buses. This position would cost us about $25,463, giving us a savings of $20,537.
So this position will take 25,000 out of that 46, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor of a motion to approve item 5T?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
No.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
No.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
Yes.
Mr. Kurt Noggle.
No.
Mr. Fred Scott.
I have to go no on that one.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
5 yes, 4 no, motion carried.
Thank you. All right, item 5U, creation of an in-school suspension classroom assistant. So administration recommends the board approve the creation of a full-time in-school suspension classroom assistant at the Shippensburg Area Senior High School. This is for 7.25 hours per day for 186 days per year in this position. This is also part of the budget process, and you remember we talked at length about this position in our Budget and Finance meeting last week. Is there a motion to approve item 5U?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Eberly. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion?
Yes. I have a problem with this issue of what happens when the person is not available? Who replaces them?
We would have to either cancel ISS for that day and reassign the students or try to find a substitute to go in.
For me, this is students that have exhibited a behavioral problem during class, and you put them in this classroom, correct?
So it's not a permanent assignment,
I know,
it's
just
a day.
Their action suspension.
Right.
Yes, I can understand the elementary, I can understand the intermediate, and I can understand the middle school. I just have a problem paying for somebody to babysit 16, 17, 18-year-old students because they didn't do what they were supposed to do in school classes. For me, this is going to be a no.
It's not babysitting, it's supervision that we would do in any classroom. I mean, they can't even be in the library unsupervised. They can't be at lunch unsupervised. Our students don't even go to the bathroom at lunch unsupervised at the high school level
Why don't they?
because they can't be trusted because, I mean, they're
We have a duty to supervise students when they're in the building, Mr. Scott.
I understand that, but you know me, I'm for a child acts up in classroom, been through detention several times, and now you're going to put them in suspension in school. I just have a problem with that. I think they should be sent home, and the parents be responsible. That's a parent's responsible. If I've gave them 3 or 4 times in detention, but that's how I'm voting.
Mr. August, can you give us some kind of differentiators between when a student would get detention versus a student would get ISS? What would be some examples of behavior that would provoke the difference?
So it does vary widely, but you know, a major class disruption. So a detention would be something like coming late to class, or you know, a minor class disruption, or you know, some kind of maybe a comment in class that would give you a detention. In school could be anywhere from a major class disruption, major, so it's really this minor, major kind of idea. If you're majorly insubordinate to staff member, or you're swearing, or you're causing a disruption, and you don't have a pattern of behavior, and it's not, someone's not hurt or otherwise endangered, in-school suspension would be a place that we would give you maybe multiple days for that. So it is a tweener behavior that could end up in out-of-school suspension if it were heightened, but generally we can manage that behavior in school. So I think that's kind of the differentiator there is, could we manage this behavior? Did this student make a mistake? Can we correct it through in-school suspension and have some time to reflect on it, as opposed to automatically kicking them out of school? And I would just reiterate, the laws that govern special education students limit the number that we can use of out-of-school suspension in a year, which becomes problematic for these behaviors that are not minor. You're late to class, you push someone in the hallway, that's a detention. Maybe grabbing someone and slamming them, but not fighting, that would be an in-school. In a full-blown fight, that could warrant out-of-school suspension. So it's really just degrees of the same behaviors, and then the high school administration has that option to assign where necessary, in accordance to the behavior and the frequency of that type of behavior.
Thank you. And I think it's really important. I know Ms. Eberly stated this the last meeting when it was on discussion agenda, but we currently do have ISS in our middle school, but we do not have it in our high school. And I think with me being a mom of both a middle school and a high school, so my kid has the expectation, one way when they're 6th through 8th grade, but then you get into 9th grade and that all changes. Kids learn from repeat, right? They learn from discipline being implemented in the same way over and over again, versus, I'm going to do this 6th through 8th grade and I'm held accountable, and then I get into the 9th grade and I'm not held accountable to the extent I need to be anymore. I mean, I can't see any reason to not.
Well, they are if they're getting suspended. That's being held accountable.
But not every, in just my opinion, but not every action. There's some things like Mr. August was saying, some things warrant to stay in school. For a lot of kids, you're sending them home, right? And are you correcting the behavior when they can go home? Their parents aren't there. They're watching YouTube, for 8 hours. They're playing video games. If I'm a kid, I'm choosing going home, versus having to be in a room supervised, still doing schoolwork, which is what we want our kids to do. How are we ever going to close the gaps that we talked about earlier when we're sending our kids home to get onto YouTube or play video games versus being in school, which our job is to educate and educating them?
Mr. August, the other schools that have the in-school suspension, who is managing the in-school suspension?
So it varies by district.
No, I mean in our district, so the middle school, we don't have a classroom assistant at the middle school. It's more so the principals.
The principal, again, at the elementary, you get far fewer in-school suspensions.
Right.
There's typically a student in at a time, and they sit in the office area and are managed by the principal and the office staff. The middle school is done in the office area, and again, typically managed by the administration. I would say the elementary level, that's a little more doable. The middle school, I know that can be a burden on them as well. And down the line, most middle schools, a lot of the middle school I'm familiar with had a similar analogous position. Currently with our budget, we can't prioritize that. And they seem to be managing. The high school is the area where, we have this biggest hole. Ideally, we would see that we'd have more detentions, slightly less in schools, and then the smallest should be the most severe, which would be the out of schools. We're a little bit out of whack on that. That can become problematic at state reporting time when we are suspending students out of school. So to answer your question, it's managed at the building levels at those two areas. They have varying numbers of kids that they deal with. The middle school down the line,
With the middle school, they're not in there doing work.
they are, to my observation. The times I've been there, they're sitting in a room. I'm not saying they're.
Then it changed because there wasn't enough room for
They are spread out.
before.
Right. So there's a very small room, Mr. Suiters, that they expanded out, and they sometimes use the conference room. Sometimes, I think, the social worker will spend some time, working with the students during that time. But, when my trips through the middle school, there are students who are in those rooms and they have their books, and, they're getting checked in on by the administration. Again, I'm not saying it's ideal. Ideally, there would be someone watching them directly in the room with them to say, get moving, open up your book, open up your computer. But again, I don't claim that to be the best best version of it. But I knew they do rely on it as a disciplinary option.
How many, the classroom where the kids would go in that class, how many are special, have special problems or issues that?
I don't have data on that. We do collect that at the end of the year, sometime for some reporting. I would just say there's 20% of our population is special needs. So I would say, a representative would say at least 20% would be, in the middle school.
In 80, and I'm just talking about the high school. So my concern is about the kids that don't have those issues. They're just jerks and being assigned to those classes instead of being reprimanded, because they got to go through a detention before they get suspension. Am I correct?
Not always,
But
depending
most of
on. It's really based on the nature of the incident, Mr. Scott, and some track record stuff. So if you've done a lot of little things and you've accrued a lot of detentions, the next time you do something similar, even though it may be smaller, they may use progressive. They should be using, and they do use progressive discipline on you. So I think that's really the picture that we have to get, is the idea of progressive discipline, is that we have options that we can move a kid. If a kid's doing repeated behaviors, our response can escalate appropriately. Right now, we're not able to do that because we go from a detention to an out-of-school suspension for repetitive behaviors.
So he's had a repetitive detention, right?
Possibly, depending on the student and depending what they've done. Each student has, their own individual profile.
Okay.
So go ahead, Kirk.
All right. This, what we're about to vote on, we talked about offsetting costs by not prepaying for some of the special schools that we send the kids to. Is that correct?
So there is the potential, and again, I don't I don't want to be nailed down on any numbers, but the general consensus is if a special needs student does something or has accrued out of school suspension and then does something else that would take them over the 15-day limit, we would have to use one of our spots that the board has paid for already. Or if those slots are full, we would be coming to the board to say, here's an additional placement. Some of those placements can run up to $73,000. So and again, we're playing what if, I don't sit here and tell you that it's going to be galactic savings, but it does a couple things. One, it keeps all of our students in school, which is something that administrators and teachers and staff all want. And it gives us that progressive discipline arc that we can move kids through a logical sequence and not immediately go to the extreme end for what could be handled in school, and generally in most settings would not be an out-of-school suspension. So
Basically, you can't commit to not doing one of those, and that's okay.
Right. So I would definitely say we would change how we discipline all students, including special ed students. And there's a chance that, if we would have had had these placements, had special ed in-school suspension in place, we may not have had to use those placements or could have used them for a shorter amount of time, whenever that 15-day gets tripped.
So it gives us the potential to save some money that we did not have the potential to save in the past. And this is what the high school principal is asking for.
Yes.
And administration.
Correct.
All right, any other discussion?
So with bringing 4 students back, we could hire a full-time teacher.
So I think a different conversation. I mean, they're parallel conversations somewhat. But, to your point, certainly the fewer out of district placements that we have, they are substantial cost savings, which could be reallocated somewhere else.
So just to add on, so some of these positions, the STAR position and the behavior, what's it called?
The behavioral specialist.
So all of those contribute to that capacity to solve these problems in-house rather than spending money outside.
It is more cost effective, and we can serve more students with staff inside the district. There are, of course, capacity limits that we hit that we then have to rely on outside placements.
But there are some of these placements where it's $100,000 a year. So if we can keep one student here, that's one teacher.
All right, any other comments? All right, we'd have a roll call vote, please, on item, this is the motion to approve the creation of an in-school suspension classroom assistant.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
No.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
Yes.
Mr. Kurt Noggle.
No.
Mr. Fred Scott.
No.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
No.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
5 yes, 4 no, motion carried.
Thank you. All right, item 5V is the creation of a custodial position. Administration recommends the board approve the creation of a full-time custodian position. This position is included in the 23-24 budget and was part of the personnel requests that you've seen through that process. Is there a motion to approve item 5V?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Eberly,
Second.
second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5W, creation of a, somebody say it for me. Bocce. Creation of a bocce and assistant bocce coach. Administration recommends the board approve the creation of a bocce coach at a supplemental salary of $1,000 and assistant bocce coach at a supplemental salary of $500, pending the creation and approval of an MOU to include these positions within a collective bargaining agreement, the appropriate collective bargaining agreement. These positions were included in the budget and under the personnel requests. Is there a motion to approve item 5W?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Wolfinger,
Second.
second by Ms. Eberly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. Item 5X, creation of an assistant middle school cross-country coach. This is recommended the board approve the creation of assistant middle school cross-country coach, a supplemental salary of $1,616, pending an MOU with the collective bargaining unit. Is there a motion to approve item 5X?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Eberly,
Second.
second by Dr. Lyman. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5Y, part-time athletic training agreement. Administration recommends approving a new part-time athletic training agreement with Shippensburg Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine. This agreement would have a one-year term commencing on August 1st of this year and terminating on July 31st of the following year. Compensation is based on 400 hours of additional coverage and additional staff based on the district's request. The cost for the services is $11,200 to be paid for out of athletic fund balance. Is there a motion to approve item 5Y?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms. Eberly,
Second.
second by Ms. Wolfinger. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. Is this included in the contract that is in the discussion agenda?
No.
That will be a separate.
Correct.
Okay.
With all things with the athletic, how much is it going to impact our budget for next year?
So it's roughly 11,000 coming out of.
That's that, just that, but there was the other coaches and everything. How much more is a total be for the athletic?
I'm not sure I have that off the top of my.
So is that like $15,000 with like the last couple things that we have approved? $15,000.
Thank you, Ms. Eberly.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the part-time athletic training agreement?
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. All right, item 5Z is expulsion waivers. The parents of a student in a particular case, disciplinary case, waived their right to a formal student discipline hearing before the Board of School Directors. Administration recommends the student be placed at River Rock Academy, which is an out-of-district educational placement for a minimum of 45 days beginning in the following school year, in the next school year. Following the 45-day replacement, administration will meet to discuss the student's progress towards their defined goals. During the period of exclusion, the student is not permitted on school property for any reason, including any extracurricular or school-sponsored activities. And then there's a second case as well, which I believe is exactly the same, follows the exact same pattern. So 2 cases. Is there a motion to approve item 5Z?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kressler. Discussion?
So during these expulsions, the district still pays for these 45-day?
So we already have slots that were in the budget at River Rock in different locations. So when this term is up, those students will return to school and those slots will become available again.
So these kids, like they were just expelled for the remainder of this year, but they will be back for the beginning of the next school year?
So that they have a 45-day school suspension, and these incidents happened at the end of the year. So it would roll over into the next year. They would start there and then come back.
So expelled is a lot more serious than being suspended?
Yes, expelled usually is a policy violation, and or an extreme profile or history of disciplinary action. The expulsion is the highest level the board can take for student discipline.
I think back in the day when you think expelled, it was like the whole year or you weren't coming back.
Correct. So these are policy violations. So we have policy that dictates how many days the students would be suspended or expelled and then returned. There are things that can be year-long suspensions, depending on what the incidents would be.
Any other comments, discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the expulsion waivers?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, well, that was lengthy, but we made it through. So now we are to the discussion agenda, which is also not short. If you have any comments on any of these, please bring them forward. First, item 6A is an MOU between Shippensburg University Head Start and the school district. This is the MOU for the next year for the Head Start program. This is nothing new. This is a renewal, correct?
Correct.
Program that's continued for a long time. Are there any questions? Item 6B is an MOA between the district and the Shippensburg Area Educational Support Professional Association regarding classroom assistants volunteering to work with the 2023 extended school year classes offered by the district. The district will pay $20 per hour for the classroom assistants in this position. The MOA is attached. Any questions, comments there? Item 6C is reappointment of the board treasurer. Administration recommends the approval of the reappointment of Nicole Weber as the treasurer for the coming year. Any questions, comments there? Item 6D is reappointment of the board secretary. Reappointment of Christy Lentz. as the board secretary for the next fiscal year. Any questions, comments there? Item 6E is the worker compensation and violent assailant insurance renewal for the upcoming school year. You can see what the workers' compensation and violent assailant insurances for the fiscal year are from that figure. It's a slight decrease from the previous year. Any questions or comments there? Item 6F is a resolution calling for the free school meals for all students. Providing universal school meals benefit all students, their parents, teachers, and the school, as studies show students with access to free meals have improved attendance rates, improved participation rates, fewer behavioral incidents, lower suspension rates, and better health outcomes. Any questions there?
Is that just getting sent to Harrisburg?
I believe that's what that
it's
is,
for?
yes.
So,
And there's a bill in the Senate and the House, the real bills, they're there, they're in the Education Committee. So if you want to be involved and write to your senators and legislators in Harrisburg, this is a good thing, feeding kids.
yeah, I was reading it earlier.
Item 6G is the approval to participate in federal programs for the 23-24 school year. So administration recommends authorization to submit applications for the following federal programs. Title 1A, Improving Basic Education. Title 2A, Improving Teacher Quality. Title 3, English as a Second Language. Title 4A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment. These are programs, I assume, that we apply for this authorization each year.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, comments there? Item 6H, general property and liability insurances for the upcoming school year, which includes a price increase of approximately 12% and is included in the 23-24 budget. Main reason for the increase is due to insurable values increasing, so we have more property, and the recommendation to increase our commercial umbrella coverage from 5 million to 15 million. Any questions or comments there? Item 6I is the agreement for independent educational evaluation. Administration recommends the approval of the agreement for an independent educational evaluation between Dr. Kochmar, maybe, and one enrolled district student. Cost of the evaluation is $4,000. Questions, comments there? 6J, additional targeted support and improvement plan for James Byrd. The attached ATSI plan for James Byrd Elementary School. You can read through that draft. Any questions or comments there?
Is this the information that Mr. Flores shared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
6K 23-24 arts and general supplies bid. Each year, administration prepares bids for arts and general supplies. The successful bids are summarized below. Administration recommends awarding the 23-24 art supplies bid in the amount of over $7,000 and the general supplies bid in the amount of $41,000. Questions? 6L is copier rental. Attached is the rental agreement from Document Solutions for a copier at the new administration building. District's too far in their current lease to be able to add this copier to the existing lease. This would be a 37th month rental, $300 a month, be able to add this copier to future lease agreements. Any questions?
Just a quick question, renting or leasing versus buying, because it's like $11,000 for one copier.
Yeah, I mean, because copiers, they get used really hard.
Okay. So it's just
It's the
getting
recommendation to rent it.
the service on them.
Yep, mhm.
Okay.
Is my understanding just generally sort of how these things work? It's generally better just to lease.
Gotcha.
6M is the request for proposal, the RFP for fuel supplies from Fuel Supply Services. This is a RFP to advertise for proposals for gasoline and diesel fuel supplies for the coming school year. Any questions there? 6N, new story tuition agreements, an extended school year. News Story Schools operates a private licensed school in Carlisle. News Story provides intensive academic and behavioral interventions for special education students. There you can see the rates for various students. Any questions or concerns? 6O is similar. News Story tuition agreements for some other students. 6P, again, more, continued agreement or additional agreement with News Story Special Education Services. 6Q, Cengage Learning, middle school ESL materials. This is a quote for materials to be utilized for the ESL students at the middle school from Cengage Learning. The cost of $2,400. These materials will be paid out of the 23-24 curriculum budget. 6R, please interrupt me anytime if you have questions or concerns you'd like to bring up. 6R, Partnership for Career Development Service Agreement. Renewal agreement with Partnership for Career Development. Partnership for Career Development for the upcoming school year. Annual cost of the agreement is almost $4,000. Come out of the curriculum budget. Letters, materials from Lexa Learning Systems. This is a request for approval to purchase the letters, volumes 1 and 2, to be utilized for professional development with kindergarten and special education teachers to develop a deeper education or deeper understanding of the elements of instruction, the science of reading. Is this what you were talking about earlier, Ms. Woodall? Yes. Okay. So this is the first grade teachers have done this past year. We're doing the kindergartner teachers this year.
In special education as well.
All right, 6T, textbooks to be sold, donated, or disposed. 3 teen health textbooks, looks like, you'd be used in the middle school. And 6U, dialed action agency event agreement with Nancy Grayson Elementary School. Superintendent recommends approval of the agreement between dialed action agency and Nancy Grayson for professional cyclists to perform a BMX show for students at Nancy Grayson on September 5th. The cost of the performance will be paid out of the Student Activity Fund. Any questions? And then finally, item 6V, Boyo's transportation contracted rates. Mr. August, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, it was our hope to have an agreement there. We're still hammering out a couple things. So when that is done, we'll add it to the agenda on the discussion and give the details to the board.
Okay, so more than likely, we'll see this on the discussion agenda again next.
That is our hope.
I have a question. All this discussion, the items on discussion, they're going to be on action next month, next meeting?
And consent.
Consent or action?
Some that are recurring, Mr. Scott, will go to consent. So they're not all going to go to action. But the ones that are new or novel would stay on action.
Okay.
In other words, it might not be as long.
Huh?
In other words, it might not be as long.
You're joking.
All right. Well, we have made it through the discussion agenda. We are now to the second citizens' comment period. Is there? It looks like we have one citizen present.
And we thank you, Mr. Scott.
No comments. Excellent. All right. So we are to board comments. Mr. Scott.
Yes. I talk to a lot of people in the community. These meetings goes on so late in the night, people don't get to see the end. Is there any chance we can start at 6 instead of 7?
We can start whenever the board would designate that time, Mr. Scott.
What do y'all think? I just know.
I would love that.
I would love it too.
Me too. I just so many people in the community.
I'd love to move it back the way we did it, because I think we get out of here quicker.
Not with all these items on there, ain't gonna make no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, we moving all this, which I understand. I know. I think I understand. But I just think starting at 7 o'clock, then 8 to 9, and I'm missing my basketball game. But
I feel your pain, Mr. Scott.
but why can't we move? Is there?
We would simply have to agree to do that and then advertise, Mr. Scott, the change in times.
Members? What do you think?
And that would mean if we have a executive session or something, they'd probably have to be after, because then you're at 5 o'clock.
Correct. I had that many anyway, so I just think.
Just a caveat. Remember, there's a lot going on in the district with building projects and a lot of big ticket items that I don't foresee lasting forever. But you know, the will of the board, you know, if that's what the board wishes, then we can make that adjustment.
Like the Levi guys go to work, he's still here. It's just an idea. I think 6 o'clock is better than 7. I'm wrong.
I mean, I understand, but even 6:30, even if you did 6:30 to 7:30, and then like even a half hour, like I don't know if 6 might be too early for everybody, depending on.
We got the meeting in the whole, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's certainly reasonable to have this on discussion, and, you know, when we changed the format, it was a kind of, you know, we had it as a discussion item, and then we voted on whether to change the format, and we did. We certainly can, you know, go through the same process and entertain a change in time. I wouldn't want to spring it on anybody, because
No.
we're sort of used to this plan, but I'm not opposed to, you know, discussing this next meeting, and we can, and then decide, you know, if we want to change the schedule or not. So we can sort of discuss the pros and cons next week and think about it, whatever. But
Well, I won't be here. I'll be on the road. But I just think you know how my feelings are about it.
And also, just to be clear, Shippensburg does a great job of being transparent and proving all items through the board. So that's another reason why our agendas are long.
I got a life. So, okay.
Is that all, Mr.
All right,
Scott?
that's all I got.
Yeah, Ms. Wolfinger?
How do you top that? No, just want to wish all of our retirees happy retirement. They certainly have earned it. Can't believe 177 years combined for their careers. That's pretty remarkable. So just want to thank them all for their service and what they've done for students and education.
Mr. Kressler?
Yeah, first, thanks to Chad and the gentleman that he had come in tonight to talk to us about generators for 23 minutes exactly, as Dr. Goetz noted. Thanks to Sherry for her presentation. Again, thanks to Christy and your team for all of the work on the budget. I couldn't imagine actually going through and doing all of those, crunching all those numbers. Seems very stressful. And then finally, graduation was great. It's always one of my favorite nights of the year. Whether, you know, back when I graduated, to even going back and seeing kids all these years later. I thought the kids who gave speeches, the commencement speeches, were exceptional. One kid was like a stand-up comic. I loved it. I thought it was great. And but it was really good. Appreciated it. And Dr. Goetz, you killed it as well there, shaking hands in the back. I was proud of you.
Thank you, Mr. Bard.
None tonight.
Mr. Noggle?
Nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Suiters?
Yep, I'm good.
Dr. Lyman?
I'm fine.
Ms. Everly?
Well, I just want to say that I'm proud of us, that what the community did witness tonight was democracy at works. This is what full transparency looks like. Healthy discussion, regardless of differing opinions, but finding a common ground and being able to, you know, make a decision based on that common ground, regardless of your personal opinions, when you keep kind of student-centered and stakeholders at the center of your decision-making. So I think that this board has come a long way, and I just kind of wanted to highlight that. And to thank Dr. Goetz for keeping up with the this and that and that, and I'm glad it was you and not me.
I appreciate that. I have no comments tonight. So, excellent. So we have information date savers. We have a, I'm sorry, am I missing something? Did I miss someone?
Mr. Lyman and Mr.
No, I was over there. I got him.
Oh my God, you got me all flabbergasted then.
Yeah. Sorry. It's okay. I need to be checked on. All right. So June 13th, which is what, tomorrow? Facilities Committee meeting at 4 p.m. in the Conference Center in the Administration Building. And then I guess that would be Thursday, June 15th, is a Naming Committee meeting at 3 p.m. in the Conference Room at the Administration Building. There's a Policy Committee meeting on the 21st at 11 a.m. in the Conference Room in the Administration Building. And then in 2 weeks' time, we will be back here, same place, same time for now, for a Committee of the Whole and our normal school board meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Let's go make a motion, we adjourn.
Love it.